Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. I thought we should look today at Amnesty International's charge that Nigeria is not doing all that well when it comes to Amnesty International. You know, I suppose they have branches all over the world, but they're talking about the Universal Periodic Review. That's the Human Rights Council at the 31st session, you know, to cite all the material particulars. At the 31st session, the Human Rights Council's Universal Periodic Review has said, in essence, that human rights violations by Nigerian authorities are fueling impunity across the country. And this is against, you know, the 2013 report when Nigeria had pledged to, criminalize unjustified violence and especially torture and those kind of things. Now, this latest report, Amnesty International has said that Nigerian authorities, probably meaning the army, are fueling impunity across the country. Of course, the army has responded and said that they are shocked at the report. It's a figment of the imagination of Amnesty International. Those on the ground know that this matter is nowhere like Amnesty is painting it. In fact, I think the army has gone as far as saying that it's like trumped up charges. We're talking, of course, about the army and the confrontation between the army and the Islamic movement, also of Nigeria, also known as Shiite Muslims. Okay, my guest this morning, a journalist and a lawyer and current affairs commentator, Enitan Olukotun, is a social commentator and he's a journalist, and it's our pleasure to have you again.
It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Tunde Kolawole, I should have said Mr. Enitan Olukotun, since I put the Mr. for the other one. Mr. Tunde Kolawole, lawyer and current affairs analyst. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Indeed. It's a serious matter. This charge by Amnesty International, nobody would be happy about that. But Nigerian Army has said that it didn't happen the way Amnesty International has reported it. Of course, we'd like to hear from Amnesty International themselves, but you know, those guys are not the easiest of guys to get hold of once they've put out their report. Apparently, the attitude is that they don't come up with those reports lightly, and once they've said it, it's been said. Is it as simple as saying which side are you going to believe? Surely it's probably more complex than that, in the sense that I guess everybody can't see everything 360 degrees. So Amnesty is saying this is the way it is. Nigeria is, by its behavior, fueling impunity. The army is saying figment of their imagination. That whereas there were in a total of 2 confrontations, something like 7 injured, Shiite Muslims, and 6 Nigerian army servicemen were also injured. That's really the extent of the violence. Take a stab at it, Kola.
Well, let me say this, that since the return to civil rule in 1999, and then especially with the emergence of the Boko Haram insurgency in the country, there has not been any love lost between Amnesty International and the Nigerian army. You could fathom why that is. That here is a group of people who you could describe as not being responsible for the emergence of the Boko Haram insurgency in this country, who are being called upon on a daily basis to go to the battlefield, to lay down their life to defend the integrity and then the corporate existence of the country with whatever the society is able to provide for them, on the one hand. And then for Amnesty International, you and I will realize that they've, over the years, been a very credible watchdog of activities that regards to the violations and preservation of fundamental rights all over the world. As to who is right, who is justifiable, who is wrong, and all that, there is no doubt about it that we have seen some excesses on the part of the Nigerian army over the times. Give, for example, the latest encounter. It was reported in the media that the army were carrying some weaponry to certain places in the north, especially Kaduna.
Exactly.
And then the Shiite were also approaching the city with the view to engaging in their trek. And in between, there was an encounter and all that. And then,
because all the army was doing was just conveying its hardware from one place to the other until these people confronted them. And the army is not going to be dislodged from its assignment.
And then people were killed and all that. Let me say this. The challenge has been that since the return to civil rule, we have never taken the pain to really reorientate the Nigerian security forces as regards the differences in managing crisis or managing security during the military era and then now since the return to civil rule. And it is not just peculiar to the army alone, it's also with the Nigerian police, with the Nigerian Civil Defense Force and all that, because the mentality the army, that the police, the civil defense are carrying to carrying out their respective duties and all that, is the way it was during the military era. And if you have that kind of a mindset, we are likely to continue to have the kind of challenges that we do have. Furthermore,
there's plenty of time. I'll come back to you again. I wanted to bring to you any, that last statement that the behavior of our guys in the security forces is largely still very much in the military era. I would have thought personally that between the Nigerian army and the police, there's still a lot more work to be done. But it's different from in that time when an army man, well, a soldier, as we say, I was speaking in Nigerianese when I said an army man. A soldier might slap you just because, I don't think things are as bad as that. But I mean, I was just trying to say that between the police and the army, coming from that time, perhaps there are some differences in the way they operate. But you might also, I don't know what you think about that.
No, Uncle Yori,
because we're trying to find out the grievous charges that have been laid at our doorstep by Amnesty International.
Yeah, Uncle Yori, if you look at it very well, the security forces, especially the military, I think they have really conducted themselves in recent years in a more professional way than we were used to, especially during the military junta. So if you recall, in those days, it was more or less like a daily event that you will see. You will see a military man, for instance, probably you block him on the road, he will come down, slap you, beat you up and all that.
They used to carry horse whips.
You recall the story of the naval-rating officers here in Lagos that beat someone up, and you saw the decisive disciplinary measures that the government of the day took against that individual, and we have seen that and that is not to say that we won't have some few cases where you will have some overzealous officers that have not aligned with the new mission and the new sort of line.
But let it be said that the context is different.
Yes, of course.
In the sense that the way they relate with civilians is one thing, and even the way they related with civilians and still relate with civilians is one thing, but that was more of a professional engagement.
Exactly.
Where, fire was deployed or fire was exchanged? No,
let's even look at it in the context of this Shiite clash with, with the security forces and all that. And I think I have said it, several times, and I will reiterate it again, that the excesses and the needless provocations of this group, the Shia group in this country should be condemned. And if you see a military barricade, and you know quite well that military, they are actually trained to protect and to secure the nation's territorial integrity. And if you see some group of people under the name of procession, and they are charging towards, the military with slings, with some other
rocks, stones whatever.
And other, and using human shield, especially women and children, for them to. So you don't expect, the military, that is saddled with the responsibility of making sure that the nation is safe, to fold his arm and allow these marauders, to overrun, the city, or to move towards the seat of power, because that is exactly, they are going to Abuja.
And that's where the problem comes in. From what you're just saying, that's where the problem comes in. Because the military, of course, have their own duty. They have their own MO. But here we're dealing with the civilians. They might be militant civilians, very militant. They might not be keeping all the laws, all the rules. Okay. But for all of that, they are not an opposing army. And that is what some people have said. No, Uncle Yari,
I think we need to look at this thing very deeply. The fact that some civilians probably have declared, because if you listen and read the utterances and statements coming from IMN, Islamic Movement of Nigeria,
very provocative.
Very provocative.
We understand
they even said that if they were harmed, the Nigerian army could not face them.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, if you look at it very well, if it were to be a procession of unharmed, innocent citizens,
who they were throwing rocks.
Throwing rocks and all that. So anybody who is armed against the military, it is not until you declare officially that you are actually against, or you have a war to wage with the Nigerian army or with the Nigerian government.
Yes,
before you are declared so.
It's the Nigerian state.
If your activities, your actions and inaction points to the fact that you have you have declared war against the Nigerian state.
Okay.
So you will be treated as such, regardless if you have been, in quotes, expressly labeled as armed militia group. If anything, any of your activity...
You're accused of terrorism.
Yes,
terrorism.
Of course. If your activity suggests that, you'll be classified as such.
For sake of accuracy, there's a report, there's a package on this, especially as it relates to that clash that has now gone viral and everybody's talking about it. Let's hear that report again.
Angry, daring, and resolute, thousands of Shiite protesters are on the streets for the second time in 3 days. Children and women form a large part of these protesters, walking against the odds of military firepower to register their demand. Free Sheikh El-Zakzaki. This Abuja-bound protest was relatively peaceful from Mararaba in Nasarawa. The tides turned when the Shiites arrived at the military checkpoint. The combined military team, armed to the teeth, were provoked when the Shiite procession attempted to forcefully break through their barricade. All hell was let loose. The military responded with lethal force. Our camera lens captured what seemed like some members of the Shiite group lying on the floor, perhaps hit by bullets. Residents and passers-by also scampered to safety. The most frustrating was the gridlock that began to build. Angry commuters and motorists got talking about the violent clash.
I would say this situation is unnecessary. It's unnecessary in the sense that the government of the day is not doing the right thing. One, if a court of law said somebody should be released, release the person. Even if you have other things against the person, take the person to court again. If the court finds him guilty, they will do the appropriate thing. It's not you unnecessarily keeping someone in your detention.
That's a failure of intelligence gathering. Because if this happened 2 days ago, the security agencies are supposed to be on top of their game to actually avert, a thing like this.
The violence here was like a reenactment of Saturday's scene in Zuba, outskirts of Abuja. Commercial drivers at the Zuba Park were terrified. Thomas Sani, a commercial driver, is yet to come to terms with how quickly a peaceful protest turned violent, forcing him and other drivers to abandon their vehicles.
We are running. We leave motor. Everybody run here. Because if you don't run, you die. So because of the straight bullet. Even though it's this police, they say essential discharge. So you know, you don't hear the English. When it's happening, everybody also again, we are moving from there, and now load my own vehicle and go back to my house to avoid the story that touch.
The continued detention of Shiite leader Sheikh Ibrahim El-Zakzaki continues to anger thousands of his followers. Despite several court orders granting him bail, the government insists on keeping him in confinement, causing growing protest and heightened tension. This inscription, Buhari Free Zakzaki, is becoming a common sight at strategic locations in Abuja. Well, this is one clever way the Shiite group in Nigeria is using to call attention to the continuous detention of their spiritual leader. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja. Well,
so that's the report immediately after the engagement. What do you think? The two wrongs don't make a right, we are often told. If the federal government is committing one wrong by not following a court order, that's a totally different conversation. We can come and have that. But I don't know, if the other people now are also combining it with their own wrong of confronting what our reporter there described as men armed and able to deploy potentially lethal force. I don't know, where are we?
Well, honestly speaking, I saw the clips in there. And when you look at the procession, you'll find out in there were women.
Yes.
There were also children.
Yeah. They put those ones in the front.
Exactly, in the
those
front.
Were human shields.
Front, especially. No, I wouldn't say it's a woman shield. I would want to say that this is a manifestation that we don't mean arm, that we are not armed, that it's not our intention to really do anything that is likely to undermine the peace of the society. Because I'm saying this with all sense of
responsibility. But this is a fresh interpretation of putting women and children in front of a potential a potentially dangerous protest.
It wouldn't be the first time when you look at
because this is technique of such groups.
When you look at
hoping that the morality of the opposing force will prevent them from doing the natural thing. Nobody is normally going to want to shoot at women and children.
No, I don't think so, Uncle Fulani. When you look at societies where a protest culture has taken root, where it has developed and all that, you will even see men and women, babies in wheelchair. Being part and parcel of the procession. Okay. It's a sign of goodwill. It's a sign to show that, look, we don't mean anyhow. We just want to engage in our constitution. I mean, on those responsibilities that the constitution allows us to do and all that. If the Nigerian society or if the Nigerian leadership were attentive to their responsibilities and all that, what probably would have happened? Because I am sure they would have had an inkling that the Shiite people were going to engage in that kind of procedure and all that. Would have been to withdraw the Nigerian army from that roadblock and then probably put the police in there who are better positioned, who are better trained, who could better manage the kind of position that we see now. But they never made any effort to do that. Just as it happened in Tuba, we also see this happening in Mararaba. We must realize that one thing, to go back to what I said earlier on, there must be a reorientation of all the security forces in this society, because the scenario is totally, when you are in the civil rule, the environment is different. Furthermore, whatever you do today, before you know it, it's all over the world. People, like in those processions, could have put some small devices in their pockets and all that to capture whatever the engagement is likely to be at the end of the day. Also, your cameraman was there. He recorded all those processions and what happened when they had an encounter with the soldiers and everything was all over the world. Now, don't forget that these are the things that Amnesty will look at in arriving at some of the decisions and taking some of the positions that they have taken. And by the time all this thing goes on, after a time, the Shiites could even as far as go to the International Criminal Court and lodge a complaint that, look, we engaged in a peaceful procession. This was the outcome of it. These were clips. Because they are also taking recording. There are also some other civil society groups and other that recording some of these things. So the bottom line of what I'm saying is that we must reorientate the Nigerian security forces to realize that we are in a civil rule and managing a procession or managing protests guaranteed by the Constitution in a civilian democracy is different from the way and manner you manage it as happened in the past. Secondly, we must realize that protests should become a culture in this society because we don't want people to have bottled up anger and then begin to engage in self-help, which is likely to undermine the security of the society at the end of the day.
Whereas I understand all these attenuating circumstances that you're explaining, you recall that Islamic movement of Nigeria, they've also burned police stations down. So when we're thinking of, look, maybe the police should be should have been sent instead of those guys.
So Uncle Yori, I think I need to weigh in at this, at this moment.
In terms of provocation.
Even if you look at the antecedents of this group, it is nothing further from violence right from time. If you look at their operational base in Zaria, what are the things that we are getting even from the neighbors of Sheikh Ibrahim Azazaki?
Pictures of, soldiers. So these are pictures of soldiers that also were equally injured.
If you look at it, they have actually made it very clear. This was not the first time they will be having a brutal encounter with the military forces. If you recall, in 2014, something related to this happened, during their usual procession, that they will have to block the road. And you must know for a fact that where your rights, stops, other citizen rights begin. You can't restrict the fundamental human right of movement. Freedom to move around is enshrined and is given to everybody. If Shiite is expressing its own, right of movement of having his own procession without let and hindrance, they shouldn't constitute themselves in such a way that they will hinder other people. Apart from stopping the convoy of the chief of army staff, Brata, I think in 2015, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. That is the origin.
Exactly.
That is the origin of this whole affair.
A similar incident had happened in 2014 as well.
Exactly.
So if you look at that trajectory, it is a deliberate, sustained effort of this group to tell the world that we really mean business. Now, if you are looking at, because you must be able to weigh things together. Let's talk about it. Let's
talk about something. Let's talk about the big problem.
Can I throw some light on what you have
one moment,
said?
please. I just wanted us to not lose sight of a big problem, which is that El-Zakzaky has been ordered to be released by the court. The federal government, I'm going to have to say it, in its wisdom,
I think
it is not obeying that particular court order.
The government did not obey initially. They later released him, and he was rearranged on different charges in Kaduna.
Okay. Now, Bajda Kolawole, you wanted to...
First and foremost, Uncle Folani, let me weigh in just for a few seconds what the prognosis that the NA has put forward in there. It assumes that the Shiite people are bigger than the Nigerian state and are more powerful than the state.
What assumes that?
I mean, the prognosis.
You mean the way they're conducting themselves?
No, they are not.
Wait a minute. They tried to prevent the chief of army.
Will you recollect, sir?
They tried to debar the chief of army, sir. You remember that incident? That was the first. Hello, what's going on here? A bunch of civilians, no matter how militant.
For God's sake, Uncle Solani, the chief of army staff is just one individual. He may be the chief of army staff. He also has one life. You see, these are some of the problems I see. Most times you find that the security forces see themselves as being responsible to protect the people in government, and then the personnel that are managing those government.
I don't want to argue with you, sir. I don't want to argue, but
the responsibility of the security forces is to the overall protection of property and lives of the people in the society.
The army is a professional
not just
organization.
And then the government in power.
The army is a professional organization. I'm not saying they're perfect.
Yes.
The army have these things where to go and do this job. They call them missions, right? That's you know, they call them missions. Yeah. They were on a mission. The chief of army staff was on a mission. It's not usual for a bunch of civilians to prevent the military from going about its mission. And I don't know, there's not going to be joy at the end of it if anybody thinks that they have the wherewithal to do so. I just wanted you to consider that aspect, sir.
I do. We cannot say because the part of the chief of staff was obstructed, and because of that,
not in his private capacity.
Yeah,
he was his flag, everything.
Let me give you an example, Uncle Folani. There was a time the president of the United States, I think, visited Iraq at the peak of that war in Iraq and all that. And a journalist among the audience who was infuriated by what George Bush was saying and all that, brought out his shoes and then tweeted Mr. President and all that. There were American security forces within that room. There are also Iraqi security forces on that room. If they were to behave like the average Nigerian chief of army staff, the average Nigerian soldier, what would have happened? They probably would have shot at the journalist who threw his shoes at the president of the United States. So there must be some restraint. Too many times
that there was a bit of overreaction.
Exactly. The people are trained. These are security forces who are trained to manage crisis in a very polite, in a very civil, and in a more because the world has changed.
To exaggerate it only slightly, but
you are likely to fall in trouble.
But Mr. Kolawole, to exaggerate it only slightly, it seems to me that what you're saying is that when these guys said to the chief of army staff's convoy, halt, they're supposed to halt and find out, yes, how can we help you? And then when these guys say, you're not passing here, then they should begin to negotiate because, I said to exaggerate it only slightly. They won't ask any questions on a mission.
If you are trying to control a defenseless or a protesting group who are not armed and all that, the first response or the most civilized response will not be to shoot first, to kill. I mean, in some other crimes and all that, you will find some security men who even maybe shoot to maim or shooting to the air.
These are people that are known guerrilla fighters.
Yes, of course.
Known guerrilla fighters.
But the IMNL has never been declared to have a guerrilla force as of today. Maybe if you are talking about the Boko Haram, will be justified and all that. So, but there was no attempt,
terrorism,
whether in Kaduna or what we have seen in Suba or what we are now seeing in Mararaba, there is no attempt to really disperse these people.
So you see some credence in the Amnesty's report, a bit of, over-enthusiasm. I'm just looking for, because,
Now, if you look at the Amnesty report, for instance, I think, sometimes this group, they often go overboard. Because you must be able to balance the need for you to...
The whole reason for this whole brouhaha is that the leader, El Zakzaki, they say he has not been released. Now, the government cannot see its way to releasing him at this material time.
If you look at it, the judgment that the learned judge, I think Justice Kolawole, gave in Abuja concerning Al-Zakzaki release actually came with certain conditions. And one of the conditions stipulates that he should, be given, his house should be rebuilt, and some other palliatives should be given to him before they actually relocate him back to Zaria. And those were the things they were actually doing, according to what I gather. And if you look at it as well, government in its own wisdom must be able to weigh a lot of consideration. That if we should release this one, because government must be for the good of the greatest number of people.
Okay.
Now, if you look at Al-Zakzaki and the residents and his neighbor in Zaria, where he has been all this while, and he has been plying this trade, I think, in 1979, after the Iranian Revolution. And over the years...
I'm going to come back so that you can continue on without any interruption. But on the one hand, Amnesty's report, from what we're talking about in studio here, you can't discountenance this entirely, according to Barrister Kolawole.
Yes, of course. We are not.
But you are saying that
we are not discountenancing the report entirely.
But the army has said that it's a fabrication. Yeah, Let's come back and continue with this conversation. We'll be right back. Okay, welcome back with the Nigerian army. But when Amnesty was reporting on it, talked about Nigerian authorities. It says that they are fueling impunity across the country. This is in the wake of the confrontation that you've just seen in the report on. And this was the contents of the Human Rights Council's Universal Periodic Review, the latest one. I had to interrupt you because we're now looking at, is Nigeria really fueling impunity? No. As the Nigerian army has said, it's a trumped-up charge.
No, if you look at it,
and that the casualties are much less than they are saying.
If you look at it, I don't think Nigerian army has engaged in any impunity whatsoever, because what they did, actually they did it in the line of duty. And I think...
And I don't even know where the impunity is coming from. Is it from not releasing Zakzaki, which, as you said, he has been released?
I think it was the way and manner they quelled the rampaging Shiite protesters. That was the impunity they were probably referring to. I was giving you the trajectory.
So. You look at section 33 and look at section 40.
One moment, sir.
When you look at section 33 of the Nigerian Constitution, it says that nobody shall be deprived of his life.
Okay.
And also section 40, which gives people the freedom to associate and also to move freely in the society.
Okay.
You see,
although the army has contested the over 40 odd killings alleged, the army has disputed that.
Yeah, they have. They have.
And I've said, actually, only 7 of those guys were injured. 6 of our own men were injured.
There are other organizations that are also doing their own documentation. I gave an insight this morning that sometimes when people engage in this kind of processions and other, they probably also have cameras and other hidden their pockets in which they are recording. I've also seen Barrister Femi Falana come out and say, look, the casualty as of today is about 49 people who have been killed and other. And you also even have the side, they addressed a press conference not too long ago and other. And then they displayed stark loads of their men who are in the mortuary, who have been labeled, who have been killed, and also they gave names which were published in the newspaper, which are published and
okay, one moment, please. Wait. I'm going to come to you, but one moment, sir. Reverend Dominic at home, good morning.
Good morning, Yori.
Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, Barrister Kolawole.
Good morning, sir. Yes, sir.
Barrister,
yeah.
You joined us many years ago in Nadeko protest.
Yes, sir.
When you are doing a peaceful protest, there is a point you do not cross. It is international convention. When you come to a point of barricade of police and they join themselves together, what you do is you converse with them, you talk with them, and not everybody, you send the leaders. Have you ever seen when we are doing those protests where you and I, Falana and the company, we start throwing stone on police? We engage them. At times it becomes a harsh engagement. They cannot cross the barricade. It's an international convention. How would a civilian cross a barricade of a military man and want to go home and rejoice? I can't understand how we explain things here. Let me say it the second time. Amnesty International report will not be favorable to Nigeria tomorrow. As long as this nation has turned a military nation, in civilian rule, it's a police nation. But our only here, because of violence everywhere, we have turned a civil rule, a civil nation, or a civilian government to a military, what I call it now. It's talking about a police state, it becomes a military state. Everywhere you go in Nigeria, you see military. Military are not trained to meme. Military are trained to kill. It is an international convention. Police is trained to meme. Why military is trained to kill? So what we are saying today, we keep seeing it. As long as we see this kind of people who are volatile against the military and against international convention of protest, when you come to a protest that the barricade cannot cross, you know it better than me. Okay. So if you cross that barricade, whatever you get, you take it that way.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Reverend Dominic, for calling in. The only comment I might have is that that whole sentence about the military being trained to kill, I wouldn't go as far. If necessary, they will go there, but I don't think that is the first option. After all, we hear about prisoners of war. Exactly. They could easily have killed them. Exactly. But, you know, but I think I understand the context in which the Reverend was speaking. That, look, these people don't talk too much. At least with police people, you can talk. You can talk up to a certain extent, self.
Uncle Yori,
but I think because he mentioned his name and dealt with his comment, maybe he has the right to respond.
Propaganda seems to be at play here. I have read almost everything that has been published with regards to the recent encounters and all that. Initially, they said there was a barricade. Secondly, when the army was put to task with regard to those barricades, they said there were variants of weaponry from Abuja to Kaduna. Yes. Which one of these are we likely to believe? I'm not too sure. You see, if you are familiar, I'm not condoning what the
military doesn't stop at checkpoints.
Exactly.
They don't stop at checkpoints and say, what do you carry? Exactly. Who is going to stop them and begin to look into their lorries of...
I'm not condoning what IMNL is doing and all that, but I'm aware that most of the people that you will find in IMNL today, that is the Shiite and all that, these are properly educated people, medical doctors, lawyers, and accountants and all that. And if they had reached a military checkpoint, as it has been reported and all that, or as the army is claiming and all that, I'm not too sure that we just wake up and start throwing stones at the military at those barricades. But even if they did, Uncle Folarin, even if they did, Uncle Folarin, I have said it, and I'm going to still insist on it. The first response of the army would have been to fire into the air to disperse the crowd. If you fire into the air to disperse the crowd, the people still refuse to move, then you probably will fire at their legs to maim them. In such a manner that you are not, not a target to really begin. You see, because it is very fundamental. Section 33 and 40 of the Constitution of Nigeria is very, very sacrosanct. And that is why I say,
how about what Dominic said? Dominic said that you guys, you're both agitators for democracy, and that he was citing methodology. That look, with the conventions, when we were protesting, did we ever do this kind of thing?
That is why I want us to go back with what I said earlier on, that immediately we return to civil rule. We require to have reorientated our security forces. We require to have equipped the Nigerian police, for example, with water cannon, with rubber bullets, with all sorts of apparatus with which they require to manage protest. The protest culture must be suited in this country because we don't want to encourage people to really begin to engage in self-abuse.
I think the rubber bullets, by the way, since from what you're saying, the rubber bullets as a question, by the way, I think should be more with the police.
Yes, of course.
More with the police than with the army.
Not with the military.
What is the military doing with rubber bullets?
In fact, the military have no business being at all those checkpoints that we find all over the places.
Okay.
They have no business.
Let me hear it from you. Okay. Now to hear from
Mr. Kolawole, sir, I think the military has to be on the road again with the resurgence of the, terrorism activities we have and all that. And there is no way, if you have certain intelligence on your hand, that probably this procession by Shiite group...
You're speaking for the army now.
No, Shiite group. No.
Well, the army has been making statements.
I'm not speaking.
The army has been making statements that you can quote.
They got intelligence reports.
No, of course, it could be that
because somebody was saying that it's a failure of intelligence.
They will have intelligence reports that the Shiite procession, there are possibility that they could be infiltrated. By certain elements.
So they might not want to take chances or anything like that.
I even want to speak on the need for us to balance this, this constitutionalism, vis-a-vis for us to secure, ourselves. If you recall, following the unfortunate incident of 9/11, even the United States and other Western powers, where we copied our democracy for, there were certain stringent measures They were taken. I could recall if you want to travel abroad then, they wouldn't allow you to take probably your perfume or whatever. So those are the things. And even look at the Trump presidency in the United States. He told them the Mexican, the problem, the crisis they are having within the Mexicans, the immigrants who are coming. He told them right away that if you throw a rock at the military, you should expect a bullet.
Okay. Mr. George, good morning. Thank you for holding on all that while.
Thank you, Uncle Yori. Uncle Yori, Mr. Kolawole said something. He said the fact that the Shiite put women and children in front is an indication that they mean a peaceful protest. That is not true, sir. It is their modus operandi. They put the children and women in front, and the men behind hold arms. If the men behind were not armed, the soldiers you showed, who wounded them? Which tools did they use to wound those soldiers? Or did the soldiers shoot themselves? You see, to every right, there is also a corresponding duty. I dare say that the Amnesty International is imposing a standard on Nigeria which is not relevant to our situation. What do I mean, Uncle Yori? If in Europe, for example, have you heard of a religious sect blocking the chief of army staff of that country and saying you cannot move? If in our own climate here, such a thing happens, the way you claim a right in Europe, you cannot equate it with the claim of a right that you have in such a situation in Nigeria. If a sect has what it takes to confront armed forces, then they are right. You cannot be talking about their right because they have already crossed the red line.
Of course.
Reverend Dominic said something which is very key, that if you cross the red line, in my own words now, then whatever you get from it, you call for it. That is what is happening to this sect. So this question of saying you have the right, a right to protection, you also have a duty to ensure that in exercising that right, you do not encroach on the rights of other people. It's not absolute. This is just what I wanted to point out. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, far be it for me to begin to try and impute motives, but I imagine that if you had a sincerity of purpose, the protesters, you should want to go there, go wherever you want to go, do whatever you want to do, and want to come back safe and sound.
Of course.
Therefore, you won't be engaging in any activity that is likely to provoke violence with women and children in front of you as you are protesting. So I don't know what kind of fathers and husbands that they are, that they put their women and their children in front.
Uncle Fulani, so I hope...
And you say it is not provocative.
Uncle Fulani, I hope people are not... I hope this is not a transferred aggression. And I hope that people are not equating the Boko Haram with the Shiites and all that. Because if we begin to equate the two, we are likely to mix this end up. The responsibility on protecting people who are protesting in this country lies not with even the people who are protesting. It is the responsibility of the Nigerian state, especially the Nigerian police, to protect people who are protesting, to protect them, to guide them, to make sure that the protest does not degenerate into anarchy, into self-help, into people throwing stones. But here too many times without number you find out, we never give these protesters all the protection that we got to give them. We must be very careful.
I'm entirely with you.
Lastly,
but you see, when you say we shouldn't equate this with Boko Haram, Boko Haram started as a religious matter back in the day, a little inconsequential religious sect. Now these people have come, and it is religion-based.
Yes.
and you say we do not need to look back to what happened before.
Ball, even if it could escalate to that.
Boko Haram you remember back in the day, in fact, funnily enough, yes. I think General Buhari, you know, he was the military head of state back then.
And during the Matasene.
When Matasene, all of these were religion-based. They weren't just a matter of about I can do what I want. They were based on religion. This Iran, you know, this it's religious.
Of course.
And passions are going to be inflamed.
Absolutely.
And this thing can go anywhere. And you're saying we should not borrow the lesson from the past of how Boko Haram, it wasn't born as Boko Haram.
So I'm coming, Uncle Yori,
Any gave an example here today. He said the Shiite has been operating since 1979. If he has been operating since 1979 and his motives are bad or his motives are undermining the Nigerian state, have we not had enough time to really come out with...
Let's hear from someone at the scene. Okay. You know, I'm talking about Nasarawa State. Let's talk from citizens over there. Yusuf, good morning.
Good morning, I'm clear.
Good morning, sir. Please.
I'm listening to the argument happening on that issue. I'm very surprised with the lawyer arguing on that matter.
Please continue. He is basing his argument on law, the Constitution, and the right to life.
You could have known the activity of that Shias. Activity of Shias in the north has becoming another thing else. The Islam is safe. What the Islam protects, you have not gotten what Shia are doing today. And how can what Islam protect peace in any portion of the Quran? And today, we happen to understand that they go against what the Quran prescribes. Going against the rule of the law, which is the Constitution. We know that, yes, they have the right to protest whatever they want. But like what the Reverend have said, where the other right stops, the other person's right continues. If you happen to see what happened on that Abuja that very day, which is at Nyanya, the block, people left places since around 3 o'clock before they could get where they are, around 12 o'clock in the night. What if it happened? A pregnant woman was being carried to the hospital, or a patient being carried on an ambulance. What do you expect? We should at least we should be right now in our argument. If this year, we in the know we are tired of them. If the lawyer they are arguing that yes, we are doing for that, please let them advocate for, let them be relocated to his own location.
I mean, it's a very, very serious matter. But I want to thank you very much, Yusuf, for contributing that perspective. Now, Yusuf introduced some aspects to this whole matter that we went, heavy on. He even went as far as saying that, as far as he is concerned, and people who think like him, they're not even Islamic.
Of course.
According to him. According to him. They're not even Islamic, and that you need to see what they are doing. As Dominic said, Barrister Kolawole said he will not be tired of, talking about the constitutional right to life. Okay. But as Dominic said, then there are rules of engagement.
Of course.
Even as democracy activists, that there are well-known parameters. These people, either they knew them or they didn't know them, and there's no how, because Barrister Kolawole has said that there are graduates in there, all sorts of professionals, so they know what they're doing. So precipitating a crisis is the way you look at it.
Yes, of course.
Precipitating a crisis.
Yes, of course. But
you might have sworn off your own life that if I go, I go. But at least I will cause trouble.
Yeah, it is deliberate. It is very clear, except if you want to be hypocritical, about the whole unfortunate...
Maybe not hypocrisy, but the way people understand these things.
Exactly. But if you look at the caller before the last, actually said something that was quite germane. He said that the wounded military soldiers who wounded them, I'm very sure they were not insane. They wouldn't pull gun to themselves and blow themselves up, or probably
we didn't see the nature of the injury. It could have been a rock. It could have been a rock.
A rock?
I don't know. I couldn't ascertain the nature.
A rock will not cause a serious collateral damage.
A well-placed rock.
I
don't know.
Okay, now even if
we are begging the question. We are begging the question.
But even at that,
no matter, you see,
let's give a lady. Let's give a lady some.
This morning.
I'm going to come straight back to you. Right. Stella, good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
Very well, Stella. Thank you.
Yeah, please, I want to contribute.
Please.
Yeah, I grew up in Zaria. These Shiite people, about 3 years ago, were supposed to attend a wedding in Zaria. The wedding was to start by 10 a.m. We did not start this wedding until 4 o'clock. What the Shiites, what they do, they will block the whole road. And their members are about 5 million. Some they come from Niger, some from Kanu, all over. So the Shiites, they shouldn't be given an opportunity at all. There was another time in Zaria. I told you I grew up in Zaria. The emir wanted to visit Banadine. There's one man they call Banadine in Congo. They have to turn him back. He couldn't. That's the emir of Zaria. That wedding was supposed to take place by 10 a.m.
Yeah.
But we couldn't. That wedding we have to 4 p.m. They hurriedly do it under 1 hour. They have finished that wedding. What they do, they will block the whole road. They will put petrol inside bottle. They put petrol inside bottle. And anybody that wants to dare them, they throw it at them. So the Shiites shouldn't be given an opportunity at all. I didn't think they used to park one side and let vehicles move on the other. No, they will block the whole road. And the other side, they were saying their members, they are more than 5 million. They are more than Nigerian army. So the police that now they are saying police should go out. The police cannot try them.
Okay.
The police cannot bear them.
Thank you very much.
Police. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Stella, for that perspective there. Did you want to say something?
Yes.
Hold your peace, Eni.
I am sorry to say most of the arguments and responses, with due respect, that we are even seeing coming from outside the studio appears to be emotional. I made mention of one thing. He said the Shiites have been there since 1979. If they have been there since 1979, how did we allow them to become the kind of octopus that they have become now?
When you characterize contributions as emotional, I mean, these are facts that are being contributed. This is a fact.
Let me know why I say it's emotional. Why I say it's emotional.
These people
not too long ago
are constituting themselves.
Not too long ago,
are becoming a law unto themselves. What we say goes. I don't care about your society and your rules. What we say goes.
Not too long ago, there was a kind of uproar against the SARS in this country. The SARS didn't just begin killing people yesterday. It was a gradual thing. We turned a blind eye. We thought because armed robbers were disturbing us, they were all over the places and all that. Let this go and start killing people indiscriminately. No one is condoning the excesses of the site in this country. But we are saying that if you are going to control whatever excesses that these people are, you must follow the due process of the law.
Do you think...
You cannot just wake up and then start killing people because
do you also have any words? But do you also have any words for anybody constituting himself into a law unto himself within the state of Nigeria?
Of course,
and trumping his nose at our rules?
Of course I do.
And stopping the chief of army staff from going about his business?
Don't, Uncle I will go there. When people mention the issue of the chief of army staff, I just my response to that has always been the chief of army staff is just 1%.
But he symbolizes.
He does not personify the state.
Okay, Nelson. Good morning in Edo State, I believe.
Yes.
Yes. Good morning, sir.
Uncle Yori.
Good morning. Thank you for calling in.
Good morning.
Good morning.
You see, in Nigeria, we seem not to go down the memory lane of our history. You see, sometimes we have to learn how to learn from historical mistakes. You see, the Shiite group, I will ask a very typical question. The Shiite group, are they not Nigerians? Yes, they are Nigerians.
They're not all Nigerians. They're not all Nigerians.
No. If we cannot ascertain that now. If they are Nigerians, that means the Nigerian army does not have any business with them. Because the Nigerian army, they have two duties. Duty to protect life and protect our territorial integrity. That means whatever that is going on within the country and whatever crisis that involves Nigerians, the Nigerian army does not have the right. They don't have any business with that at all. We have the police, we have the mobile police. They are trained to do that. The Nigerian army are trained to kill and protect territorial integrity. Let me correct.
About this whole problem about the Nigerian army being trained to kill. No, I've heard it for the second time today.
The impression of Mr. Enitan, he talked about something concerning Trump, about the caravan. You understand? He said that the Trump told the Mexican caravan, the caravan coming from Honduras, that if they throw a stone, that he will fire a bullet at them. Yes, the caravans, are they Americans? No. So
all right then, thank you very much. Because of time, I take your point. Thank you very much for it. Now, Eni, finally, you know, let me hear because you've been trying to say something, but I've tried to defer to the other side so that we can give them a full hearing.
No, Uncle Yori, I think my whole submission on the whole, Shiite saga, is very simple. We could be over legalistic. Over certain issues.
Don't bother criticizing any opinion contrary to yours. No. It's possible. What you're saying is that it's possible to become overly.
No. What I'm saying is that there are certain measures, there are certain development that it will require drastic actions. There are some things that you must nip in the bud. Immediately they are germinating until they become something monstrous that you cannot contain any longer.
Nothing extraordinary really happened.
If you look at Shiite,
we don't have the time.
If you look at Shiite, if you do the proper profiling of Shiite and Zazaki movement, his activities in this area since 1970, he has had clashes with successive military administration in this country.
Indeed. Well, I thank you very much.
What we are saying, and
as
again,
I said, we've completely run out of time. All I'm allowed to say now with the time remaining is that we're so thankful to you, Mr. Enitan Olukotun, journalist and social commentator. And I think I have a few more seconds for which I can say thank you also to Barrister Tunde Kolawole, who is a public affairs analyst.
It's a pleasure being here.
The conversation will continue on another day. So that's our program. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.